Alrighty. Did you miss me? Let's get to it. Welcome back to IBF On Demand. I'm your MIA, but back and better than ever host, Eric Wilson. You can find me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. Thanks for the follows, the subscribes, and once again, you can still find me on LinkedIn. It's growing there. I got a lot of people that I connect with and follow you. Like to see what's going on, so we'll follow each other. How's that sound? So find me on LinkedIn at Eric Wilson Demand. You can find me on YouTube, obviously, and wherever you get the podcast, you can find us there as well. You can also find us on ibf.org. Please check that out as well. While you're on the computer and you're scrolling through and you're checking things out, check out Arkiva, our sponsor. Continue sponsor, but they're a great company, and I've always happy to work with them in the past and happy to work with them on this podcast now. So thank you, Arkiva, driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. Thank you very much, Arkiva, for being part of this. So we've been gone a little bit, so there's a lot of great thank you for the notes, the emails, keeping in touch with people. I love that about this, is being able to connect with real people and not just a camera. Sorry, Scott, love you, but there's people at the other end of this camera. I love to connect with them as well. And I've been a lot of places, and I was able to really talk with a lot of people, whether it be in the energy sector, to beverage, to paper, no matter what it is. I've been to a lot of places around the globe recently, being able to work with companies and work with individuals. And I'm going a lot of places going forward as well, which is even more reason why you should find me on LinkedIn or go to ibf.org to see everything that's going on. The next person is someone I've actually connected with a couple times now. It seems like every time I go somewhere, I keep running into this person. So we've actually connected a couple times now. One in an undisclosed location in Seattle for a training for a company, and the other one at our Scottsdale conference. And so then I just had, after talking with her, I had to bring her on my podcast then as well. So today we're going to discuss how generative AI is transforming supply chain planning, synthetic data, small language models, agentic AI. We're going to give all your questions answered. A lot of the notes I get and a lot of questions I get with everything that's going on with AI is about Gen AI and AI in general. But mostly about Gen AI is there any use cases in it? Are people using it? Because when they see ChatGPT, they're relatable, saying, is people actually doing this stuff with business planning and demand planning and supply and S&OP? And I got news for you. Yes, there are some cases out there. Months ago, I'd say maybe. Now, I have expert here to tell you exactly what some of the top companies and what they're doing today. So please help me welcome today's guest. Jess Lee is a data and applied scientist at Microsoft, specializing in leading advanced machine learning projects for specifically their cloud supply chain. She combines deep technical expertise with a focus on driving a resilient supply chain. Her prior experience at Dell includes award-winning work in supply chain simulation, expandable AI, and large-scale anomaly detection. Jess holds a Master in Science in Business Analytics from the University of Texas, and she's with us today to talk a little bit about AI. Help me welcome Jess. So welcome, Jess. I'm excited to have you on my show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Eric. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again as well. So Scottsdale and now today. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, very excited to be here.
We had some great conversations, great presentation there as well. And you brought up a lot of new terms that I think for this audience, it would be great to go through some of those terms and kind of unpack or explain a little bit about what exactly is going on. So the first one that I keep hearing about is generative AI. And I keep hearing, is there any use cases for generative AI? People know about it from like OpenAI and, images, famous for images. Yes, we can understand this is a picture of a cat. I get that part. But is there any helpful or use cases we can think of for supply chain?
Yeah, sure. Um, Let me first talk about what generative AI is. So it is definitely a term that got more popular thanks to ChatGPT and large language models. But generative AI is just a type of artificial intelligence that is good at generating the new output by learning from vast amount of data. And when we are thinking like how it can be connected to like supply chain and S&OP, the cases that I've seen are related to accurate forecasting practices that would lead to efficient inventory management and resource allocation. So I can talk about like detailed use cases, but I would first go on in general, like what kind of challenges that could be tackled successfully by generative AI. So when we are trying to make an accurate forecasting, we often face the challenge of getting very limited amount of data or very biased data. Or there could be cases where we don't even have any data about the new trend that's happening in overall supply chain, like how we faced in COVID. So in those kind of cases, generative AI can create the new data set that could fill in the gap where we are facing from data limitations. And then that would really help us go into uh, creating the forecast with more accuracy by unlocking us to leverage more information, but also unlocking us to try more advanced methods to make it forecasting.
So, okay. So one of the things you talked in there is so generative AI, you're creating new data that really didn't exist before. So opposed to other AI models, generative AI, you're creating some useful information. It's creating to be able to then utilize in planning. Or in other words, synthetic data. That was another terminology that I think our audience is kind of trying to figure out then as well. So break down synthetic data then next, and how does it, you already kind of mentioned it, but how does that really play a role into forecasting?
Sure. So uh, yes, it is a new data. So talking about the synthetic data, it is a artificial data, but it is the characteristic of it is it resembles the real world data, and how usually synthetic data is playing an important role, especially when we are trying to test our solution with the extreme cases, or we don't have enough time to collect all the data, or even situations where we're not even allowed to consume some data due to data privacies. So in forecasting in supply chain, I think we face similar cases as well. So, for instance, let's say we just released a new product, and because it's so new, we don't really have the history about it. But usually, to make an accurate forecasting, uh, it's not always, but good to have history longer than an year so that we can capture some information about monthly seasonality, quarterly seasonality, and yearly seasonality, etc. But we don't have that luxury all the time. So that's where synthetic data can play a important role. So, for instance, we can come up with the business cycle assumption or business growth assumption, and infuse that with the limited amount of customer data we see for this new product. And we can create synthetic customer demand data, and then we can use that for demand forecasting. So that could be one case. Another case is a risk simulation. So especially when we are looking at multiple signals about environments, like macroeconomic changes, and also industry-specific signals, and also we often look at internal signals as well. And we don't always know the exact relationship if one signal changes and how that impacts the other. That's where we can use some generative AI models to create realistic synthetic data of different scenarios of the signal changes, and use that to see how forecast deviates and eventually how it is impacting the overall supply chain resiliency. So yeah, I think those are the cases I think we can benefit from using synthetic data.
Okay, that's great explanation. And I think what the problem some of the audience gets hung up on would be you're creating new data, and they're thinking, how do you forecast and plan off of data it's creating and inventing? So I think that you kind of talked to it, but where does this data, where does it make up the data from? So it's not just making it up; it's simulating based on actual data. Is that? I mean, I think that's the part that they're not connecting.
That is correct. So there are multiple ways of creating synthetic data. One classic and simplest example is just using the signal, like customer demand, for instance, and use only one signal and change the distribution and the probability, which will be eventually generating the different range and interval of a one signal. So that is one example that we are creating new information, but not having too much black box information about what's happening behind. That is one way. But on the generative AI models, it can intake more than one signals. And when you are doing it, you can use the signals that you have. You have a strong assumption that this could be one scenario or one direction that's going to influence how the customer demand is going to be changed its direction to. That is how we can we can use the model to generate a new output, but not too far away from real world, but being more close to the assumptions and the realistic information that you're giving to the model. So yeah, I think that's how we can make sure that synthetic data output is more close to what we expect to see and what we see on the real world.
That makes perfect sense now. So it's the best explanation I've heard of it so far.
Great.
So when we're continuing with explanations now, the other thing people are familiar with, ChatGPT or something, they're large language models, and they're data hungry to be able to forecast. And you hear that you really can't do a lot of ML and everything because you don't have enough data. Well, now we're talking small language models. Does that just mean less data, or what exactly is a small language model, and how does that translating into our planning?
Sure. So large language model has been really hype recently, and how we decide whether model is small or large is there are multiple characteristics, but major things are like how many parameters it contains, and how long of a context it can process. So what that means is that large language model size itself is large. It is very complex, and it is already pre-trained with a large amount of data. So it is showing great performance in the general purpose tasks, so like summary and other natural language processing tasks. But however, small language model, it can take shorter amount of context, and it has a smaller number of parameters, but still large enough. So what it can be beneficial, how it can be beneficial is that it can be very it can be very keen on performing well on specific tasks compared to large language model. So even though it shows smaller latency because model is lighter, and also it is consuming less compute resource coming from the same reason, but still we can achieve the same performance that we're seeing from the large language model. And talking about like how it can change the forecasting area or supply chain area. So there are many cases that we can leverage large language model, and by training or even do the very wise prompt engineering with a small language model, we can make sure that we can achieve the similar goal, but much less compute resource and also lower latency. So yeah,
Okay.
that's how we can leverage small language model and benefit from it in supply chain.
So we don't have to, I mean, it takes less resources to have to retrain because it has less parameters. So, I mean, I can definitely see applications in the forecasting world in a dynamic type of environments that supply chain and business forecasting lives in, that a small language model can really start to fill those gaps and add more precision with not having some of the general use large language models that you're trying to throw at it historically.
Yeah, I think that's a good summarization of the benefit it can bring in. So I like to share some actual use case where
Please.
we see the benefit of using small language model over large language model in making a forecast. So in forecasting, like we can try to do like demand sensing. It's been especially important because supply chain has been changing dynamically and it's been very, very volatile. So it's been really important to capture what's the latest news release today and how customers and public are um, reacting to these new changes. So the point is we ingest the information outside in the world really quick and reflect that into our forecasting model. So small language model, but the information that we're trying to extract is not a very complicated or a huge thing. The information that we wanted to extract is how the customer sentiment are changing related to certain topic or important um, customers that we have in our business. So by using small language model, we can repeat the process of collecting the information and sensing the shift of the sentiment of the customers in more higher frequency so that we can get more latest information about the sentiment shifts and use that to our forecasting change for our customer demand.
Okay. The audience going to because they love to hear those use cases. They love to hear. So thank you for sharing it because they're really going to love that, being able to hear how it's being used. Well, as we're going through our terminology, I got two more here to list, but the first one that I loved hearing about in Scottsdale and loved talking with you about was agentic AI. So how is this different than the traditional models? What makes it different?
Sure, yeah. It's personally, it's really exciting innovation happening. I'm seeing.
It is.
So it is really. Agent is actually not a new term for anything that is doing something for doing something work in an automated way instead of a human intervention way. Uh, so those parts we've been often calling as an agent. And however, what's being more popular and why we think it is innovative now is now this agent is being powered by AI models, like generative AI models, especially large language models. What it does is, so agentic AI is a autonomous agent that can observe the environment and take in an action that user asks this agent to do. And it's not ending it from there. It can actually reflect the result of its action and also look at the observation it made from the environment and decide which next step it want to go forward as a next step. So um, that being considered, it is going to introduce automating many processes that require the human intervention. So, like for instance, I like to revisit the like small language model case. So, to make it being useful in a continuous fashion, I would need to revisit time to time to update the examples that this language model can learn and also updating the keywords this language model to capture for those sentiment shifts happening in customer and public. But what agentic AI can help is it can look at the latest news articles and dynamically update the prompts that's being used in language model and then run the rest of the process. So it is really with higher level of agency and autonomy. It has the ability to um, make each process more simpler. And what's gonna be more exciting is when there will be going on a situation where we have small agents placed in the multiple processes. We can also make agents that orchestrate the small agents. So um, that is also going to lead us to another level of automation.
So you have small agents embedded all through the process at different, for different reasons, different points. I mean, it sounds like, the AI and the agents are not going to replace us. It's going to be more of a, let's use a word, co-pilot along the way.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah.
Just brainstorming a term we could use for it.
Yeah.
So there's another terminology. Real quick, I was curious, where does this fit in from everything we talked about, from Gen AI, small language models? Where is it? Because you had a new term, at least it was new to me, that I thought was fascinating, was time GPT. You mentioned that in passing. I don't know what were you referring to with time GPT, and how does that fit in going forward?
Sure, sure. So, small language model was is a one example of generative AI, and TimeGPT is also one example of a generative AI. But the output that it is generating from being generated from TimeGPT is different from small language model. So TimeGPT is a foundation model, foundation model using the time series data, which means that it is trained on the large amount of time series data, like 100 billion data with diverse industries like healthcare, finance. So we don't we have to worry less about tuning the parameters of the models, which means that it has already learned a lot of information about what different seasonal patterns, or what different other patterns that could be identified in diverse time series data. So yeah, that's what TimeGPT is and how it's different from language models.
So what ChatGPT is doing for me in searching and being able to start, we are actually looking at from a large language model, being able to look at other industries, other time series. I mean, all the data that's out there and formulate, some seasonality, different macro trends, consumers, relatable, features.
TimeGPT, it is sharing the key architecture that what made language model revolutionary. It's called the transformer architecture. So, like how where what we get benefit most from language model is that even though we don't train this language model with our data, it already has all the information about what to do. So it can perform whatever task we ask this language model to do. So TimeGPT is like a similar thing in a time series forecasting area.
Mm-hmm.
So because it is already trained with large amount of data, so even though we don't give much information or limited information, what by information here is time series data, it is already pre-trained with various types of patterns. It can still generate the realistic forecasting based on the horizon that we requested to.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is all very fascinating to me. I'm sure it's very fascinating to the audience as well. I mean, I'm excited about what I'm hearing and what's going on. Some people, they get a little bit scared when they're hearing all of this. I mean, my producer, he's scared to get a new computer because of, certain reasons. So he's not going to get a new computer. But at the same time, there are people out there, they hear something, they're concerned AI's replacing them. Should they be worried that you're coming for everyone's job right now and we're going to replace everyone with agentic AI that's going to and models TimeGPT, it's going to do everything for them?
Yeah. Um, I would
Well, what's
say,
the user's role to make sure the solution's successful? How about that? What's our role in this process?
yeah. So, um, really, like all this technique sounds very fascinating. Like I just talked about the model that is already trained on large data, so it can do a job without teaching them again. It is all very fascinating, but still, it cannot make a great performance every time. What to make a solution based on all these techniques successful is really domain knowledge. So, for example, like for the small language model cases, when we want this model to to run the sentiment analysis job very well, we first need to give a very good examples to do the sentiment analysis in a direction we want this model to do. So, and because it is taking smaller number of information compared to large language model, the examples that we put into each prompt, it really controls and impacts a lot of the output that is being generated of small language model. And another thing is that because generative AI is generating new output every time, we really need to have quality monitoring and output checking system within us because it is generating new one every time. So one good way to make this quality insightful and in a high standard, we have to use our business domain knowledge to have a great sample of the what the expected output should be. And we have to keep monitor that the what's being generated from these models are simulations are similar to the validations that we created with the business domain knowledge. So it's really input and output control these models cannot perform well by itself, it will become very useful to us only if we will be able to provide our business domain knowledge in both input intake, but also the output control.
Wonderful. So it's not taking over, it's enhancing our abilities. And we still need smart people like you with good domain knowledge to be able to really make the models work. That's what I just heard.
Smart expert like you as well. We really need domain experts to make this solution successful in many areas. So yeah, it cannot happen.
See, so in the future won't be AI led, it'll still be human led. AI is just going to help us along the journey. There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
So well, wonderful. It was great talking with you again. I always enjoy, catching up. So I'm sure we're going to be talking again real soon. So I appreciate your time here.
Yeah, sounds great. And Eric, I also really appreciate for reaching out to me to talk about this exciting topic, like how generative AI is changing supply chain. So yeah, it was also very fun, exciting to share what I'm seeing and how it's changing in the supply chain area.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, thank you. Great talk.
All righty. Well, we'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.
AI is revolutionary or possibly evolutionary. I mean, today we're talking with Microsoft, and this is just what she could talk about today. Synthetic data is starting to fill the gap. It allows us to simulate risk, improve forecasts, even with limited historic data. We're creating new data from this. Small language models are now starting to revolutionize the way we actually approach forecasting and demand planning. Precision tools, secure, efficient, and powerful for generating features. AI, though, will not replace the planners, and I hope you got that out of today's message as well. We're not going anywhere. AI is not taking over this job, unfortunately, and AI is not taking over your job yet. And at the same time, it elevates them. Business context is essential to the meaningful outputs. And I got news for you. If all you are, I've said this before, if all you are is about an output and a number, then yes, you can be replaced. But if you're about providing insights, providing value, then guess what? AI is going to help elevate that value you already have inside the organization. You still need humans in the loop. Prompt engineering, input selection, validations all require some type of domain expertise. You need someone that understands the business to be able to feed the right questions and understand and comprehend the results then as well. So we still have a role to play, and I hope you got that out of today as well, talking with Jess. With that, that's a wrap. I promise I'm not going to be gone as long, and I already have a few more podcasts in the works, so don't worry. You're going to see a few come out on a regular basis. Stay tuned for something that's going to be exciting and things to come, so please keep an eye on what's going to happen. Follow this, follow me, and then if you have any questions, reach out to me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. I want to thank our sponsor, Arkiva, for driving business transformation by solving what others cannot. Thank you, Arkiva. And I said, don't miss what's coming. Follow, subscribe, check out ibf.org for everything that's going on. There's a lot of places we've been, but there's a lot of places we're still planning on going. So check out ibf.org for everything coming up in the future. And remember, some things will never change. And as a tradition, in closing my podcast, don't forget, say it with me, wash your hands.